Jamal, why haven't you turned in your homework?
I did it, but I forgot it at home.
Let's discuss this calmly.
Jamal, this is unacceptable. Your work is incomplete.
I tried, but I didn't understand.
Let's discuss this calmly.
This isn't good enough. You can do better.
I'm trying.
Try harder. This isn't good enough. You can do better.
I'm trying.
Try harder.
The classroom smelled like dry erase markers and old paper, the hum of fluorescent lights pressing down on Jamal Carter's skull. He sat in the second row, spine straight, hands folded over his notebook, doing what he always did, making himself small. Ms. Eleanor Whitaker's heels clicked as she paced the aisle, each step sharp, deliberate. When she stopped beside Jamal's desk, the room seemed to hold its breath. "Stand up," she said. Jamal blinked. He hadn't spoken. He hadn't moved. He rose anyway, heat crawling up his neck as 30 pairs of eyes pinned him in place. "You think you're smarter than everyone else, don't you?" Ms. Whitaker said, her smile thin, rehearsed. "Always raising your hand. Always correcting me." Few students laughed. Others stared at their desks. Jamal felt the familiar sting, confusion mixed with shame, tighten his chest. "I was just answering the question," he said quietly. Ms. Whitaker tilted her head. "That tone," she replied. "There it is." She turned to the class. "This is what disrespect looks like." The word snapped like a trap. Jamal's ears rang as she wrote his name on the board under detention. His notebook trembled beneath his palms. He wondered, not for the first time, how something so small could feel so heavy. How being seen could hurt more than being invisible. Then Ms. Whitaker leaned closer, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "Watch yourself, Jamal. Boys like you end up exactly where they belong." The bell rang. Students poured out, the moment dissolving for everyone but him. Jamal stayed frozen, staring at the board, until he noticed the door open again. The principal was standing there, watching. And he didn't look surprised. Jamal Carter arrived early like he always did, sliding into his seat before the bell rang. The classroom was quiet except for the buzz of the lights and the scratch of a few pencils. He opened his notebook to a clean page, wrote the date in the top corner, and waited. Being early was safer. Being prepared was safer. He had learned that quickly at Lincoln Ridge High. Ms. Whitaker swept in 2 minutes before the bell, coat draped over one arm, coffee in the other. She didn't look at Jamal when she passed his desk. She never did, not at first. She set her mug down, arranged her papers, and clapped once. Phones away. Eyes front. The bell rang. "Today," she said, turning to the board, "we're discussing the crucible. Power. Authority. Reputation." Jamal felt a flicker of interest. He liked literature. He liked how words could say one thing and mean another. When Ms. Whitaker asked the first question, his hand went up automatically. She sighed. "Yes, Jamal. The play shows how authority uses fear to control people," he said. "Even when there's no real evidence." Oz. Ms. Whitaker faced him slowly. "That's one interpretation," she replied. "Anyone else?" Several hands went up. A white boy in the back echoed Jamal's point, less clearly. Ms. Whitaker smiled. "Excellent. See, that's how you participate respectfully." Heat crept into Jamal's face. He lowered his eyes, wrote the quote she assigned, and told himself to breathe. 10 minutes later, his chair scraped softly as he shifted. Ms. Whitaker stopped mid-sentence. "Is there a problem?" she asked. "No, ma'am." "Then why are you moving?" "I was just—" "There it is again," she said. "Interrupting." "I wasn't," Jamal said too quickly. The room tilted. "Stand up," Ms. Whitaker said. Chairs creaked. Someone whispered. Jamal stood. "You think you're smarter than everyone else, don't you?" she said. "No." Answering back. Correcting tone. "That's defiance." "I was answering the question." "That tone," she said. "That tone is disrespect." She wrote his name on the board. Detention. Jamal stared at the chalk dust drifting down. His heart hammered, loud enough that he was sure she could hear it. I need you to learn your place, Ms. Whitaker added. The words landed wrong. They always did. The rest of class passed in fragments. Jamal didn't hear the final question, didn't notice the bell until students began shoving past him. He stayed seated, hands clenched, eyes fixed on the board. Jamal, Ms. Whitaker said, softer now. A word. He approached her desk. You're a bright boy, she said. But brightness can look like arrogance. Especially from you. From me, he asked. She leaned in. Watch yourself. The door opened. Principal Robert Hale stood there, clipboard tucked under his arm. He took in the scene, the board, Jamal's posture, Ms. Whitaker's smile. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, Ms. Whitaker said. Just discipline. Mr. Hale nodded. Jamal waited for him to ask questions. He didn't. Jamal didn't talk much on the ride home. He sat in the passenger seat, backpack at his feet, staring out the window as Lincoln Ridge High disappeared behind them. Denise Carter noticed immediately. Silence was never empty with her son. It meant something had settled deep. You hungry? She asked, keeping her eyes on the road. No, Jamal said. That alone made her grip the steering wheel tighter. They reached their apartment just before sunset. Denise kicked off her shoes, loosened her jacket, and watched Jamal drift toward his room without a word. Jamal, she said. Come sit. 5 minutes. He hesitated, then dropped onto the couch. His shoulders were tight like he was bracing for impact. Tell me, Denise said. He exhaled. It was Ms. Whitaker. Again. Denise closed her eyes briefly. What happened this time? She said I was being disrespectful. For answering a question. For moving my chair. He laughed once, sharp and humorless. She put me in detention. Said I need to learn my place. Denise's jaw clenched. She said that. Not exactly. But yeah. He looked down at his hands. She always does this. Only with me. And Marcus. And Keisha. Never with Dylan or Connor. Even when they're loud. Denise sat back. The room felt smaller. How long has this been happening? Jamal shrugged. Since the first month. At first I thought I was imagining it. That's how it starts, Denise said quietly. The next morning, Jamal walked through the halls with new eyes. Denise's words stayed with him. That's how it starts. He noticed how Marcus was stopped in the hallway for his hoodie while 2 white boys walked past wearing the same thing. How Keisha was warned for attitude when she asked a question, while a girl beside her rolled her eyes openly and got nothing. In English class, Ms. Whitaker called on him last, and only to challenge him. You sure about that answer? She asked, eyebrow raised. Yes, Jamal said. Interesting, she replied. Anyone want to correct him? A few students shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. At lunch, Jamal sat with Marcus and Keisha at the corner table. She at it again? Marcus asked. Jamal nodded. Keisha stabbed her fork into her salad. She wrote me up last week for hostile body language. What does that even mean? Jamal asked. Keisha snorted. Breathing while black. They laughed, but it didn't last. Across the cafeteria, Jamal saw Ms. Whitaker laughing with another teacher. When her eyes met his, her smile faded, not into anger but into something colder. Assessment. That afternoon, Jamal was called into the guidance office. Mrs. Keller smiled too widely. Have a seat, Jamal. What's this about? He asked. Just checking in, she said. Some concerns have been raised about your behavior in class. Concerns? Jamal echoed. Mrs. Keller folded her hands. You're very capable. But sometimes strong personalities can come off as confrontational. I don't confront anyone, Jamal said. I answer questions. She nodded but didn't write that down. We just want to make sure you're setting yourself up for success. He left the office feeling smaller than when he entered. That evening, Denise opened Jamal's online school portal. Her brows knit together. "Jamal," she called. "Come here." He leaned over her shoulder. The screen showed notes he'd never seen. Disruptive. Defiant tone. Needs monitoring. "When did this happen?" Denise asked. "I don't know," he said. "Nobody told me." "They're building something," Denise said. "A record." The next day, Denise took time off work and walked into the school office. She introduced herself politely, asked to speak with the principal. Robert Hale greeted her with a professional smile. "Ms. Carter, we're very proud of Jamal." "Then why is he being written up for things he didn't do?" Denise asked. Mr. Hale leaned back. "Teachers have discretion in classroom management." "Discretion isn't bias," Denise said. His smile thinned. "Ms. Whitaker is an experienced educator. And my son is a child," Denise replied. "One who's being singled out." Mr. Hale folded his hands. "We'll keep an eye on things." As Denise stood to leave, she realized something chilling. They already had. Jamal waited in the hallway during the meeting, staring at a bulletin board titled Student Success Stories. None of the faces looked like his. When his mother emerged, her eyes were steady but tired. "They know," she said softly. "And they're letting it happen." Jamal swallowed. "So what do we do?" Denise looked back at the principal's door. "We stop pretending it's a misunderstanding," she said, "and start treating it like what it is." Down the hall, Ms. Whitaker stepped out of her classroom, clipboard in hand. She smiled when she saw them. And Jamal understood. This wasn't personal. It was systematic. The first suspension notice arrived on a Thursday. It wasn't handed to Jamal. It wasn't discussed. It simply appeared in the online portal like a verdict already decided. Denise found it at midnight, scrolling through updates she'd started checking obsessively. Insubordination. Classroom disruption. Failure to follow instructions. 3 bullet points. No specifics. No timestamps. She closed the laptop slowly. The next morning, Jamal noticed the way she stood in the kitchen. Too still, coffee untouched. "They did it," she said. "They escalated." "What?" Jamal asked. She turned the screen toward him. His stomach dropped. "I didn't even do anything," he said. "Yesterday I didn't talk at all." "That's the point," Denise replied. "This isn't about what you do. It's about what they say you did." At school, Jamal felt the shift immediately. Teachers looked at him longer. Conversations stopped when he passed. A security guard he'd never spoken to nodded once, like Jamal had crossed some invisible line. In Ms. Whitaker's class, his desk had been moved, isolated near the door. "Why am I over here?" Jamal asked. "For focus," she said. "You struggle with self-control." "I don't." "Seat. Now." He sat. She handed out essays, pausing at his desk. "See me after class," she said. The words felt heavy, practiced. After the bell, Jamal stood by her desk while the room emptied. "I'm suspending you for Friday," she said, not looking up. "Your behavior is deteriorating." "What behavior?" Jamal asked. "You haven't even talked to me." She finally met his eyes. "Your attitude speaks." "That's not fair." "Fairness isn't the issue," she replied. "Compliance is." He left shaking. By Monday, Denise had requested Jamal's full disciplinary file. The email response came from an assistant principal. "Per policy, student records are confidential but available upon appointment." The appointment was set for Wednesday. They sat across from Mr. Hale in his office. Jamal's file spread open like evidence. Pages clipped together. Notes highlighted. Language repeated. "Disruptive pattern," Mr. Hale said. "Escalating defiance." "These are opinions," Denise said, flipping pages. "Not incidents. They're professional observations." "Then why do they only describe tone and posture?" she asked. "Where are the actions?" Mr. Hale adjusted his tie. "Sometimes behavior isn't physical." Jamal leaned forward. So I'm being punished for how I exist. The room went quiet. Mr. Hale cleared his throat. This is exactly the defensiveness we're concerned about. Denise laughed once, sharp. You hear that? My son names what's happening and you call it proof. Mr. Hale closed the file. Ms. Carter, pushing back won't help Jamal. Neither will silence, she said. Outside, Jamal stared at the brick wall across from the office. They already decided, he said. Yes, Denise replied. But now we know how. Over the next week the file grew. A note from a substitute. Student seemed disengaged. A comment from a hall monitor. Lingering between classes. A lunch aide's remark. Argumentative when redirected. Gentry small. Together damning. Marcus got a detention for being late. Dylan got a warning. Keisha was sent to the office for rolling her eyes. A white girl did the same thing and laughed. This is how they do it, Keisha said quietly in detention. They don't need one big lie. Just a lot of little ones. One afternoon, Jamal overheard two teachers in the copy room. Watch that Carter kid, one said. Administration's got concerns. Yeah, the other replied. You can tell early who's trouble. Jamal walked away before they saw him. That night, Denise sat at the dining table, Jamal's file spread out again. She highlighted patterns, dates, repeated phrases. They're building a case, she said. Not against what you did, but against who they say you are. So what happens if they finish? Jamal asked. Denise didn't answer right away. At school, Ms. Whitaker announced a presentation project. Group assignments, she said. Chosen by me. Jamal ended up alone. Isn't this a group of 4? He asked. Yes, she said. But given your history, independent work is better. My history? Jamal repeated. She smiled. It's all in the file. Something in Jamal hardened then. Not anger, not fear. Clarity. After class, he pulled out his phone and started recording. Just audio tucked in his pocket. Ms. Whitaker, he said. Can you explain what I did today that was disruptive? He paused. Are you recording me? No, he said. I just want to understand. She stared at him, then lowered her voice. Careful, she said. Students who push end up regretting it. That night, Jamal told Denise everything. She listened. Then she reached for her phone. We're done being quiet, she said. Now we document them. At Lincoln Ridge High, the file had been built. What they didn't know, what they never anticipated, was that someone had started building one back. Detention started on Monday. Room B-12 sat at the end of a quiet hallway, far from classrooms and foot traffic. The walls were bare except for a faded poster about choices and consequences. Jamal took a seat in the third row, notebook open, pen ready. He told himself to treat it like study hall. Keep your head down. Count the minutes. Ms. Whitaker arrived last. She closed the door with deliberate care and stood at the front of the room, arms folded. This is not free time, she said. This is reflection. Jamal didn't look up. He paced once, then stopped beside his desk. Eyes on me. He raised his head. You think bringing your mother in here changes things? She asked. I didn't say that. You didn't have to, she replied. Students like you always think they're the exception. Jamal swallowed. I just want to learn. She smiled. Then learn when to be quiet. The rest of detention passed in silence thick enough to bruise. Every time Jamal shifted, her gaze snapped to him. Every time he wrote, she hovered, reading over his shoulder. On Tuesday, 2 other students joined detention. Both black. Neither had spoken to Jamal before. She do this to you too? One whispered. Yeah, Jamal said. Ms. Whitaker's head snapped up. No talking. The boy flinched. Wednesday was worse. Ms. Whitaker assigned an essay, reflect on your behavior, and walked the aisles as they wrote. Jamal raised his hand. What behavior are we supposed to reflect on? He stopped, slowly turned. Excuse me. I mean, he said carefully, The write-ups don't list specifics. The other students froze. You're being argumentative, she said. Again. I'm asking a question. She leaned down, voice low. You're testing me. I'm not. She straightened. Then right. That afternoon, Jamal found himself called to the office again. Assistant Principal Vaughn didn't smile. Ms. Whitaker reports continued defiance, he said. During detention. Jamal asked. Yes. For asking what I did wrong. Mr. Vaughn folded his hands. Tone matters. Jamal laughed once, unable to stop it. So there's no right answer. Mr. Vaughn's eyes hardened. Careful. The word echoed. By Thursday, Jamal felt like he was moving underwater. Every step watched. Every breath interpreted. He noticed how white students joked loudly in the halls, how teachers smiled and shook their heads indulgently. When Marcus slapped Jamal's shoulder in greeting, a hall monitor stepped in immediately. Move along, she said. Across the hall, two white boys shoved each other laughing. Nothing happened. That afternoon something changed. In detention, Ms. Whitaker accused Jamal of rolling his eyes. I didn't, he said. Don't lie. I didn't. Office. Now. As Jamal stood, he saw Keisha in the doorway, phone half raised. Ms. Whitaker noticed too. Put that away, she snapped. Keisha hesitated, just long enough. Later that night, Keisha texted Jamal. Hey, I got it. Jay got what? Video. Before she made me stop. Jamal stared at the screen. Jay, are you sure? Yeah. She said you rolled your eyes. You didn't. His hand shook. They watched it together on Jamal's bed. Ms. Whitaker's voice sharp, Jamal standing still, eyes forward. No, I roll, Denise said softly. Nothing. Hope flickered. The next morning the video was gone. Keisha's phone showed a corrupted file. She swore she hadn't deleted it. My phone froze, she said. Then it was just gone. By lunch rumors spread. Jamal heard whispers. Careful around him. He's always in trouble. My mom said he's probably getting expelled. He sat alone, appetite gone. That afternoon, Denise received an email. Due to ongoing behavioral concerns, Jamal Carter will be placed on disciplinary probation pending review. Probation. Denise printed the email, hands steady but face pale. They're escalating again, she said. Jamal nodded. They're trying to break me. Denise met his eyes. Are you broken? He thought of the hallway looks. The file. The erased video. No, he said. But I'm tired. That night, Jamal lay awake, replaying Ms. Whitaker's words, the way authority bent reality. Somewhere inside him something settled. Not resignation but resolve. If silence was what they counted on, then silence was over. At school the next day, Jamal noticed a woman he didn't recognize sitting in the back of Ms. Whitaker's classroom, taking notes. Ms. Whitaker's smile faltered. Just for a second. Jamal's pulse quickened. For the first time in weeks he felt it. The balance shifting. The parent-teacher conference was scheduled for 3:30 p.m., tucked neatly between the final bell and the after-school rush. Jamal sat beside his mother in a row of plastic chairs outside the conference room, knees bouncing despite his efforts to keep still. The hallway smelled faintly of floor cleaner and coffee gone cold. Denise rested a hand on his arm. Remember, she said quietly, we stay calm. We listen. We ask questions. Jamal nodded. He had memorized that part. Calm was the language adults trusted, at least when it came from some mouths. The door opened. Ms. Whitaker stood there, clipboard pressed to her chest, expression composed. Ms. Carter. Jamal, she said. Please. Inside, Principal Hale sat at the small round table, folders stacked neatly in front of him. Assistant Principal Vaughn leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Thank you for coming, Hale began. We want what's best for Jamal. Denise smiled tightly. So do I. Ms. Whitaker sat and opened her folder. Jamal has been struggling with authority in my classroom, she said. Repeatedly. Jamal felt Denise's hand tense. Can you give an example? Denise asked. Ms. Whitaker flipped a page. March 3rd. Jamal challenged my instruction during a lesson. I answered a question, Jamal said. Ms. Whitaker looked at him. This is what I mean. Hale raised a hand. Let's let Ms. Whitaker finish. Denise leaned forward. No, let's be specific. What words did he say that were inappropriate? Ms. Whitaker hesitated just a beat. It's not always about words. It's tone, posture, energy. Energy, Denise repeated. So you're documenting my son's energy. Vaughn cleared his throat. Ms. Carter, we don't need sarcasm. Denise turned to him. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm asking how something that vague becomes grounds for suspension. Hale interjected smoothly. When patterns emerge. Patterns emerge when you look for them, Denise said. I've reviewed Jamal's file. Every note uses the same language. No witnesses. No specifics. Just impressions. Ms. Whitaker's smile stiffened. Are you questioning my professionalism? I'm questioning your fairness, Denise replied. The room went quiet. Jamal watched Ms. Whitaker's fingers tighten around her pen. Jamal has been given multiple chances, she said. But he refuses to adjust. Adjust to what? Jamal asked. Not talking. Not answering questions. Hale sighed. Jamal, this meeting isn't about debating. It's about deciding my future, Jamal said, voice shaking despite himself. Denise placed her palm flat on the table. My son is being punished for existing in a way you're uncomfortable with. And now you're threatening suspension. We're discussing intervention, Vaughn said. Suspension is not intervention, Denise shot back. It's removal. Ms. Whitaker closed her folder. If Jamal continues on this path, we'll have no choice. Denise stood. Then let me be clear, she said. If you suspend my son based on this file, I will escalate this beyond this building. Hale's expression hardened. Threats won't help. It's not a threat, Denise replied. It's a boundary. Jamal felt something crack open in his chest. Not fear but pride. The meeting ended without resolution. They walked out into the hallway, the door clicking shut behind them like punctuation. In the parking lot, Jamal exhaled hard. They didn't hear anything we said. They heard, Denise replied. They just didn't care. The next day, the suspension notice came anyway. 3 days. Jamal stared at the email on his phone during homeroom. His ears rang. Around him, the room buzzed with normalcy. Jokes, laughter, backpacks slamming shut. Ms. Whitaker didn't look at him once. By lunchtime, the rumor had spread. You really getting suspended? Marcus asked. Jamal nodded. For what? Jamal shrugged. Energy. Keisha shook her head. They're making an example. That afternoon, Denise picked Jamal up early. They drove in silence until she pulled into a grocery store parking lot and turned off the engine. I'm calling a lawyer, she said. Jamal's eyes widened. A lawyer? Yes, Denise said. And the district. And anyone else who will listen. What if it gets worse? Denise looked at him. It already is. During the suspension, Jamal stayed home, completing assignments online. Emails from teachers were curt. One read, "Please remember expectations upon return." On the second day, a message appeared in Denise's inbox. From an unfamiliar name. I think what's happening to your son is wrong. If you're willing to talk, I can help. No signature. Just a school email address. Denise forwarded it to Jamal. An ally, she said. Or a risk. Jamal read it twice. What if it's a trap? Then we're already in one, Denise replied. But sometimes people stay quiet until it's impossible not to. They replied. On Jamal's first day back, Ms. Whitaker announced a quiz. Make sure your phones are away, she said, eyes locking on Jamal. He placed his phone face down on her desk before sitting. Her lips pressed into a thin line. As the class worked, Jamal felt eyes on him. Students, teachers passing by the open door. He realized then that this was no longer just about discipline. It was about control. And control, once challenged, rarely let go without a fight. The email came from a teacher Jamal barely knew. From L. Thompson at Lincoln Ridge. Subject: Re your son. I'm willing to talk. Not in my classroom. After school. Tomorrow. Denise read it twice, then once more aloud. Why would a teacher risk this? Jamal asked. Because they've seen this before, Denise said. And because silence costs something too. They met in the public library 3 blocks from the school. Neutral ground, bright windows, the low murmur of people who weren't watching them. Ms. Laura Thompson arrived with a canvas tote and the wary look of someone who had rehearsed this conversation 100 times and still didn't trust it. Thank you for coming, Denise said. Ms. Thompson nodded, sitting across from them. I can't stay long. Jamal noticed her hands. Steady. Determined. I teach junior English, Ms. Thompson began. Not Jamal's class. But I grade common assessments. And I attend department meetings. Denise leaned forward. What have you seen? Ms. Thompson opened her tote and slid a folder onto the table. Inconsistencies. Jamal's breath caught. These are anonymized grading rubrics from the last 2 essays, she said. Same criteria. Same prompts. He pointed. Jamal's work meets or exceeds proficiency. But his comments focus on tone and attitude. Things not on the rubric. Denise flipped pages. This is subjective. Exactly, Ms. Thompson said. And here. She produced printed emails. Department messages discussing students who challenge authority. And the need to set firm boundaries early. Jamal read one line twice. Certain students respond better to correction when expectations are clearly enforced. That's coded, Denise said. Ms. Thompson nodded. It always is. Why give this to us? Jamal asked. Ms. Thompson met his eyes. Because I watched a student like you leave this school convinced he was the problem. He wasn't. He checked her watch. There's more. Grade change logs. She slid another sheet across the table. Jamal's essay score had been lowered after initial grading. No justification entered. Denise's voice tightened. Is that allowed? Only with documentation, Ms. Thompson said. Which doesn't exist. Silence stretched. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop. What happens if they find out? Jamal asked. Ms. Thompson exhaled. I get labeled difficult. I stop getting advanced classes. Maybe worse. Denise closed the folder. Then we protect you. Ms. Thompson gave a small, tired smile. I'm not asking for protection. I'm asking you to use this carefully. They did. Denise contacted the district's equity office. She attached documents. She requested a formal review. She CC'd the school board. The response was swift and defensive. District reply. We take concerns seriously and will conduct an internal assessment. Internal. Jamal had learned what that word meant. School, the air changed. Teachers avoided Jamal's eyes. Ms. Whitaker was icier, her corrections clipped and public. Read the instructions, she snapped when Jamal asked for clarification. I did, he said. I'm asking about. Office, she said. Now. In the hallway, Jamal's phone vibrated. Denise, Mom, recording on. He slipped the phone into his hoodie pocket. In the office, Assistant Principal Vaughn didn't sit. Why are you escalating? He asked. Because nothing changed, Jamal said. Escalation has consequences. So does bias, Jamal replied, surprised at his own steadiness. Vaughn leaned closer. You're not helping yourself. Jamal held his gaze. I'm helping the truth. The next day, a notice appeared. School climate review. Classroom observations. Observers arrived. Clipboards, neutral faces. Ms. Whitaker's class became a performance. Mail. Encouragement. Jamal watched the switch flip and felt the weight of it. When the observers left, Ms. Whitaker stopped by his desk. Enjoy the attention? She asked softly. I enjoy fairness, Jamal replied. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. At lunch, Marcus slid into Jamal's seat. They're watching, Marcus whispered. Good, Jamal said. That afternoon, Denise received a call from the local paper. We've received documents alleging discriminatory discipline practices at Lincoln Ridge High, the reporter said. Would you be willing to comment? Denise closed her eyes. Yes. On the record. The story ran online that night. Questions raised over discipline disparities at local high school. It didn't name Jamal. It didn't name Ms. Whitaker. But the quotes were unmistakable. The next morning, the principal called an assembly. Lincoln Ridge stands for excellence and inclusion, Hale said, voice echoing. We are committed to reflection and improvement. Students whispered. Jamal stared straight ahead. After the assembly, Ms. Thompson found Jamal by the lockers. They're reviewing grade logs, she whispered. District level. Jamal's pulse spiked. What does that mean? It means receipts matter, she said. That afternoon, Denise received another email, this one from the school board. We request a meeting to discuss next steps. Denise printed it. And steady. Heart racing. At dinner, Jamal poked at his food. What if they retaliate? Denise reached across the table. They already did. Later, Jamal sat on his bed, phone buzzing with messages. Supportive, cautious, curious. Keisha sent one last text. K. My cousin saved the video to the cloud. It wasn't gone. Jamal stared at the screen. Mom, he called. Denise appeared in the doorway. Jamal held up the phone, hope blazing. This time, he said, it's backed up. Outside, sirens wailed and faded. Inside, the truth finally had a place to stand. And it wasn't moving. The school board meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday night, live-streamed and open to public comment. Jamal watched the notification pop up on his phone during last period. Special session. Student discipline review. His stomach tightened. Not fear exactly, but the feeling of standing at the edge of something irreversible. Denise picked him up early. You don't have to speak, she said as they drove. You can just be there. I want to speak, Jamal replied. The auditorium smelled like varnish and nerves. Folding chairs filled quickly. Parents, teachers, students, a few reporters with notepads balanced on their knees. Jamal recognized faces from school, from detention, from the hallway looks that had followed him for weeks. Ms. Whitaker sat 3 rows ahead, posture perfect, hands folded. She didn't turn around. Principal Hale took his seat at the long table on stage. His face was calm, practiced. The meeting began with procedure. Motions, approvals, until the chair cleared his throat. We'll now hear public comment related to disciplinary practices. Denise stood. My name is Denise Carter, she said, voice steady. I'm here because my son was labeled a problem for asking questions. Because his tone became a charge. Because documentation replaced evidence. Murmurs rippled. She laid out the timeline. Emails. File. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. When she finished, Jamal stood. My name is Jamal Carter, he said. The microphone felt too tall, so he adjusted it. The sound echoed too loud then right. I want to read something from my record. He read the words aloud, defiant, disruptive, energy. He let the room sit with them. I was suspended for 3 days, he continued, for behavior no one could describe. I started recording so I could understand what I was doing wrong. A board member shifted. Jamal nodded to the technician. Please play the clip. Ms. Whitaker's voice filled the room, sharp, unmistakable. Jamal standing still. The accusation. The denial. The silence. A gasp somewhere in the back. The chair leaned forward. Is this unedited? Yes, Denise said. We have the metadata. Ms. Whitaker turned then, finally. Her eyes met Jamal's, cold warning. Jamal didn't look away. Teacher spoke next. Then another. Patterns emerged in plain language. Grade changes without notes. Observations without incidents. Coded phrases repeated across files. Principal Hale requested time. We acknowledge concerns, he said. But it's important not to rush to conclusions. A board member cut in. What conclusions would those be? Silence stretched. A reporter raised her hand. Is it true the District Equity Office opened a review prior to this meeting? Hale's jaw tightened. We cooperate with all reviews. The meeting ended without a vote. But the air had changed. Jamal felt it like pressure releasing. By morning the story was everywhere. Student recordings raise questions. Discipline or discrimination. District promises action. At school, teachers whispered openly now. Ms. Whitaker didn't show up to first period. A substitute handed out worksheets without comment. In the hallway, Marcus clapped Jamal on the shoulder. You did it. Did what? Jamal asked. Made them listen. At lunch, Keisha slid her phone across the table. Messages poured in support, anger stories. They're telling theirs now, she said. That afternoon, Jamal was called to the office. Not alone this time. Denise sat beside him. A district representative joined via video. We are placing certain staff on administrative leave pending investigation, the representative said carefully. And we're expunging Jamal's disciplinary record effective immediately. Jamal exhaled long and slow. Denise nodded. And the harm? We'll be offering counseling, the representative said. And reviewing policy. Policy. Jamal knew what that meant and what it didn't. Outside, Ms. Thompson waited. They're auditing grade logs across departments, she whispered. This doesn't end with you. The next week, Ms. Whitaker resigned. The announcement was brief. No details. Principal Hale remained, but quieter, careful. Jamal returned to class without the file hanging over him, but not without cost. He noticed the way some students avoided him now. How attention followed him into rooms. How sleep came late. One evening, he sat on the steps outside his building, watching the sky bruise into dusk. Was it worth it? Denise asked, sitting beside him. Jamal thought of the recording, the meeting, the looks on faces when the words were read aloud. Yes, he said. But it changed things. Denise nodded. Change always does. Across town, the district announced new guidelines. Trainings. Reviews. Words on paper. Jamal knew better than to call it an ending. But it was a turn. And for the first time since Ms. Whitaker wrote his name on the board, Jamal felt the ground under his feet. Solid, if scarred. The script had flipped. Not because power handed it over, but because it had been forced to look at itself and blink. The first day back felt strange. The hallways of Lincoln Ridge High were the same. Lockers, chatter, sneakers squeaking on polished floors, but Jamal felt different. Light seemed sharper, the air thinner, as if the building itself had shifted on its axis. Not everyone looked at him differently. Some did, with a mixture of awe and unease. Others pretended nothing had changed. That was fine. Jamal didn't need everyone to notice. Ms. Whitaker was gone. A substitute, neutral and distant, handed out assignments without commentary. Jamal realized he could breathe again, almost. The staff who had witnessed the board meeting whispered in corners, eyes flicking toward him, cautious, calculating. Authority had learned the hard way that its actions weren't invisible. The district's new guidelines hung in the main office. Anti-bias training, clear disciplinary policies, mandatory documentation reviewed for equity. Jamal had helped create them without asking. Without realizing it. He had forced accountability into a system that preferred silence. That morning, Principal Hale passed him in the hallway. Their eyes met. Hale's expression was unreadable, but Jamal sensed caution. For once, power felt human, fallible, accountable. In English class, Miss Thompson smiled across the room, handing back essays. See. You belong here, she whispered. No applause, no dramatics, just recognition. Jamal leaned back, pen poised over his notebook. He wrote a single sentence about fairness, about voice, about consequences. The words felt heavier, fuller than they ever had. They were not just his story, they were proof. At home, Denise set his folder on the dining table. The official letters, the cleared records, the district's acknowledgments, all neatly stacked. Jamal ran his hand over the paper, the tangible weight of victory and cost combined. No one would see the nights spent awake, the anxiety that coiled tight in his chest, the fear that never fully disappeared. But the arc of the fight, the flips, the pushbacks, the eventual exposure, was complete. "Does it feel like justice?" Denise asked. Jamal paused. "Not completely. It's messy. But it's real." Outside, the sun set over the city. Its orange light spilled across the pavement, casting long shadows. Jamal stepped onto the sidewalk, backpack on, chest lighter but not unscarred. He had survived scrutiny, bias, and power unchecked. He had seen the system bend, but not break him. And in the quiet after the storm, he understood something essential. Change was not a gift. It was a fight. And every voice, every record, every carefully documented truth had the power to flip the script. As he walked home, students poured past him in the evening rush. Some nodded. Some avoided his gaze. All of them carried the lessons silently. Jamal smiled slightly. He would carry the rest, history, memory, resilience, inside him. The school year would continue. Challenges would arise. But the lesson was clear. When you refuse to be erased, the world is forced to see you. And for Jamal Carter, finally, the world had no choice but to look. By the following week, Lincoln Ridge High felt both familiar and strange. The walls were the same, lockers the same, yet the air carried the weight of what had shifted. Jamal walked through the halls with purpose, backpack snug, eyes alert, not from fear but from awareness. He had become, in ways he hadn't expected, a symbol, a living proof that even a single student could force authority to answer. At lunch, he found Marcus and Keisha waiting near the corner table, tablets and notebooks in hand. Marcus grinned, slapping the tabletop. "Word travels fast. You're basically famous now." Jamal rolled his eyes, but a small smile crept in. "Famous for detention." Keisha shook her head. "Famous for making them realize they can't just erase us. They're cleaning up records, auditing grades. Everyone's watching now." He blinked. "Everyone. District level, news coverage, parents. You can't imagine how many people finally started asking questions," she said. "Teachers are scared, and that's a good thing." The cafeteria buzzed with whispers. Some students looked at him with curiosity, others lingering resentment. But the fear, he could feel it, was quiet, a subtle tremor beneath the usual clamor of high school life. That tremor was power. Not his power exactly, but the power of truth. Jamal opened his laptop, scrolling through the latest emails from Ms. Thompson. Copies of the grading discrepancies, department memos, and anonymous witness statements were being forwarded to him for safekeeping. She had even created a shared folder titled Lincoln Ridge Oversight. "Why are you giving me this?" Jamal asked. "Because someone has to remember. Someone has to make sure it never happens again," she replied. Her voice was firm but kind. "You survived it. Now help the others." Jamal nodded. The weight of responsibility settled in his chest. He realized the fight wasn't over. Justice for him was only the start. Systemic change meant vigilance. He had seen the machinery of authority bend against one student. How easily perception could be weaponized. The ripple effect had only begun. After lunch, Denise walked him home, a little wind in her hair. "I spoke with some parents today," she said. "Some teachers are finally admitting they've seen the bias all along. They're afraid to act, but afraid not to act even more. Your courage forced a reckoning." Jamal shrugged. "Does it feel like victory?" Denise looked down at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "It feels like the first chapter of one." That evening, Jamal returned to his bedroom, pulling out his notebook. He had started documenting everything, The emails, the phone calls, the meetings, the board sessions. Each entry reminded him of the nights he'd stayed awake, the silent anxiety that coiled in his chest, and the humiliation he'd endured. But now, each entry carried another weight. Empowerment, proof, evidence of survival and growth. He reread the transcripts of the school board meeting. Hearing his own voice, steady, demanding acknowledgement, brought an unexpected surge of confidence. The clip Keisha had saved was still intact, stored safely in the cloud. Jamal played it one more time, watching the students' reactions, the tension in Ms. Whitaker's voice, the silence that followed his reading. It wasn't just memory, it was leverage. 2 weeks later, the ripple turned into waves. The district issued a formal notice, an independent review of Lincoln Ridge High's disciplinary practices. Several staff members, including Ms. Whitaker, were placed on extended leave. The media picked up the story, highlighting disparities in discipline, and the principal's cautious steps to contain the fallout. Jamal saw the irony clearly. The people who had tried to suppress him now existed under scrutiny. Authority, he realized, could bend, but it could also break under its own contradictions. At home, Denise set the newspaper on the table. The headline read, "Student Stand Forces District Reforms. Lincoln Ridge High Faces Oversight." Jamal ran his finger over the words. A shiver of satisfaction mingled with exhaustion. "We did it," he said softly. "No," Denise corrected. "You did it. We just helped make sure the world saw it." Later that night, Jamal lay awake listening to the distant hum of the city. His phone buzzed. Messages from students, teachers, and community members, some thanking him, others asking how to protect themselves. His story had grown beyond him. And yet there were costs. Sleep came uneasy. Friends whispered behind his back. Some teachers, now wary, avoided eye contact in ways that stung. The experience had carved him, and though it had strengthened his resolve, it had left invisible scars. The fight had changed him and the world in ways that were irreversible. By morning, the sun rose over Lincoln Ridge High, casting long shadows down the hallways. Jamal walked through them with his shoulders back, notebook in hand, every step deliberate. He had learned that survival wasn't enough. Witnessing, recording, speaking, the truth mattered more than comfort. And in that realization, he understood that change was no longer optional. For the first time in months, he felt ready, not just to endure, but to continue reshaping the system from within, one careful, determined step at a time. And the ripple, it had only begun.